I discovered my wife's affair after accidentally seeing a text meant for her lover. I never thought I'd be the guy sharing his life on the internet, but here I am. I'm in such a mess right now that I don't know how else to process it. The past few days have been hell, and I need to get this all out. Sorry in advance for the long post, but I need to tell the whole story. My wife, Bella, 30F, and I have been together for a decade, married for 7 years. We met through mutual friends, and I thought we had the perfect relationship. She was everything I ever wanted in a partner: smart, funny, and drop-dead gorgeous. We built a life together that I thought was rock solid. We bought a house in the suburbs, talked about having kids, and made all these plans for the future, our future. But now I'm realizing that everything I believed in was just a lie. It all started last Saturday. I work in IT, so I spend a lot of time on my phone and laptop, even when I'm home. Bella is a nurse, and her schedule is all over the place. I'm used to her being out late or getting up early for shifts, so when she said she was picking up extra hours to help out at the hospital, I didn't think much of it. I had no reason to doubt her, until I did. That night, Bella was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear. I thought it might be an emergency from work, especially since she gets called in a lot. But when I glanced at the screen, my world stopped. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. I'll book the hotel again. Same place, same time?" It was from someone named Mike. My heart dropped. I felt a wave of nausea hit me, and my hands started shaking. I just stood there, staring at the phone, trying to convince myself that I had misread it. But there it was, clear as day. My wife was planning to meet up with some guy at a hotel, and she was calling him babe. I wish I could say I calmly put the phone down and waited for her to come out of the shower, but that's not what happened. I froze, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Who is this guy? How long has this been going on? What the hell did I do wrong? Against my better judgment, I unlocked her phone. I know, trust is supposed to be everything in a relationship, and I was crossing a line. But I had to know the truth. The passcode was our wedding anniversary, which felt like a cruel joke at that moment. When I opened her messages, my worst fears were confirmed. There were dozens of texts between her and this Mike guy. Some were just casual, talking about their day, sharing jokes, but others were explicit, describing their meetups and what they had done together. The most recent messages were about the hotel she had booked for the next day, the one where she planned to meet him while I sat at home like an idiot. I felt sick. Physically sick. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I had no idea what to say. I could hear the water running in the shower, the sound of her humming a song I used to love, and everything just felt so surreal. This was the woman I had pledged my life to, the woman I had trusted with my heart. And she was betraying me in the worst possible way. I put her phone back down on the counter and tried to pull myself together. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, smiling at me like nothing was wrong, I had to fight the urge to scream. Instead, I forced a smile and asked her about her day, pretending I didn't know that everything was about to change. For the next few days, I played the role of the clueless husband, all while secretly gathering evidence. I started checking her phone whenever I could, taking screenshots of their conversations, and even recording their calls when they talked late at night. I know it sounds crazy, but I needed to know just how deep this betrayal went. Every new piece of evidence was like a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I also started following her. On the days she claimed to be working late or hanging out with friends, I would track her location using the Find My app, something I never thought I'd do. And every single time, she would end up at that same hotel, the one she and Mike seemed to frequent. I would park a safe distance away, watching her laugh and kiss him before they disappeared inside together. The hardest part was pretending everything was fine when she came home. She would act like nothing was wrong, telling me about her long shifts or how tired she was from working all day. I would nod, smile, and ask her if she needed anything, all while feeling like I was being torn apart inside. The Bella I knew, the Bella I loved, was gone, replaced by a stranger who was living a double life. The final straw came last night. Bella told me she had an overnight shift at the hospital, which I now knew was code for meeting up with Mike. This time, I couldn't just sit in the parking lot and watch. I needed to confront her. So, after she left, I waited about 30 minutes before heading to the hotel myself. I arrived at the hotel around 11 p.m. and parked near the back entrance, where I knew they usually entered. I watched as they walked in together, laughing and holding hands, like some sick, twisted version of a romantic couple. My blood was boiling. I knew what was happening inside that hotel room, and I couldn't stand it any longer. Fueled by anger and desperation, I walked into the hotel lobby. I told the receptionist I had lost my key and needed a new one for room 214, where I knew they were staying. To my surprise, she didn't even question it. She just handed me the key and wished me a good night. I remember feeling a rush of adrenaline mixed with dread as I rode the elevator up to the second floor. When I reached the door of room 214, I hesitated. I could hear them inside, their voices muffled but unmistakable. I pressed my ear against the door and heard Bella laughing, my wife laughing with another man, the same laugh she used to share with me. Then, I heard something else, sounds that I will never be able to erase from my memory. My heart pounded in my chest as I took out my phone and started recording. I knew I needed proof, but every second of that recording felt like it was killing me. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked away, my hands shaking, my mind racing. I don't even remember how I got back to my car. I just know that I drove home in a daze, barely able to see through the tears that blurred my vision. When I got home, I sat in the dark, replaying the recording over and over again, each time feeling the pain cut deeper. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat there, trying to make sense of everything, trying to figure out how the woman I loved could do this to me. By the time morning came, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I was going to confront her, and I was going to make her face what she had done. When she came home in the morning, looking exhausted but content, I was waiting for her in the living room. I didn't even let her put down her bag before I pulled out my phone and played the recording. The color drained from her face, and she started crying immediately. She tried to talk, to explain herself, but I didn't want to hear it. I told her to stop talking and to start packing. She begged me to listen, to let her explain, but I was done. I told her I had seen enough, that I knew everything, and that there was no way I could ever forgive her. She tried to justify her actions, saying that she felt neglected, that I had become too focused on work, that she was lonely. But all I heard were excuses. She had made a choice to betray me, to lie to me, to destroy the life we had built together. I couldn't even look at her. I packed a bag and left the house. I'm currently staying at a hotel, trying to figure out what to do next. I've been avoiding her calls and texts, which have been relentless. She keeps saying she wants to work this out, but I don't know if that's even possible. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented, offered support, and shared their own stories. It means more to me than you know. I've been reading through all your advice, and it's given me a lot to think about. I've had some time to process everything, and I decided to reach out to a lawyer. I'm not saying divorce is a definite thing yet, but I need to be prepared. The lawyer I spoke to was understanding and laid out my options clearly. I know this isn't going to be easy, but at least I have a path forward, whatever that may be. I also decided to confront Bella one more time, face to face. I needed answers, and as much as it hurts, I needed closure. So, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a coffee shop we used to frequent when we first started dating. I guess I thought the familiarity of the place would make this conversation easier. It didn't. When I walked in, she was already there, looking as broken as I felt. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. A part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but I just couldn't. Not after everything. She started by apologizing, over and over again. She said she didn't know why she did it, that it wasn't about me, but about some void she was trying to fill. She said she felt trapped by the routine of our life and that Mike made her feel excited again, like she was young and carefree. She admitted that she had fallen out of love with me, not because of anything I did, but because she had lost herself somewhere along the way. I asked her if she ever thought about what this would do to me, to us. She said she did, but that she never thought she'd get caught. That was the most painful thing to hear, that our marriage was something she was willing to gamble with, just for a thrill. When I asked her what she wanted now, she said she wanted to try to fix things, to go to therapy, to start over. But when I looked into her eyes, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw a stranger. I told her I needed more time, that I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. I left her sitting there, crying into her coffee. Now, I'm back at the hotel, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to give her a chance, but another part of me thinks that's just setting myself up for more pain. I feel so lost. Update 2. It's been a month since I last posted, and I'm honestly surprised at how much has changed in that time. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, and I've found a small apartment on the other side of town. It's nothing fancy, a one-bedroom place with minimal furnishings, but it's mine, and it feels like a safe space where I can start to rebuild my life. The first few nights were rough. The silence in the apartment was deafening, and I found myself missing the familiarity of our home. But the more time I spent there, the more I started to appreciate the solitude. It's given me a lot of time to think, to reflect on everything that's happened, and to figure out what I want moving forward. Bella has continued to reach out, despite my requests for space. She's sent countless text messages, emails, even handwritten letters, all saying the same thing: she's sorry, she wants to make things right, she's willing to do whatever it takes to save our marriage. But I haven't responded. Every time I see her name on my phone or in my inbox, it's like a fresh wound reopening. One day, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of unpacking some boxes when I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it and saw her standing there, I was hit with a wave of emotions: anger, sadness, regret. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. Her clothes were wrinkled, and her hair was a mess. I could see that she was struggling, but I couldn't let her back in, not after everything that had happened. She begged me to talk to her, to let her explain again, but I just couldn't do it. I told her that it was too late, that I had made up my mind, and that she needed to respect my decision. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I held firm. I asked her to leave, and after a few minutes of pleading, she finally did. Watching her walk away was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I knew it was the right choice. That night, I received a text from Bella's sister, Sarah. We've always had a good relationship. Sarah's the kind of person who lights up a room, always full of energy and positivity. But this time, her message was different. She told me that Bella was struggling more than she'd ever seen, that she was spiraling into depression, and that she was worried about her. She asked if I could at least talk to Bella, maybe help her get the help she needs. Reading that message left me conflicted. On one hand, I still care about Bella, she was my wife, my partner, and I don't want to see her suffer. But on the other hand, I knew that getting involved again could drag me back into the darkness I was just starting to escape. After a lot of thought, I decided to call Sarah instead of Bella. I told her that I was worried too, but that I couldn't be the one to help Bella right now. I suggested that Sarah encourage Bella to see a therapist or to reach out to someone else who could offer support. That conversation with Sarah stayed with me for days. It made me realize just how much this whole situation has affected not just me, but everyone around us. Friends, family, they've all been pulled into this mess, and it's not fair to any of them. I knew then that I needed to start focusing on my own healing, to distance myself from the drama and chaos that had consumed my life. I started going to therapy regularly, and it's been a game changer. My therapist has helped me unpack a lot of the guilt and anger I've been carrying. I've realized that while Bella's actions were inexcusable, I can't keep blaming myself for what happened. I was a good husband, and I did everything I could to make our marriage work. Her choices were hers alone, and I'm finally starting to let go of the idea that I could have done something differently to prevent all of this. I've also reconnected with some old friends, people I had lost touch with over the years. It's been great to catch up, to laugh again, and to feel like I'm part of a community. They've been incredibly supportive, and I'm grateful to have them in my corner. It's a reminder that life goes on, and that there's still so much out there for me. As for Bella, I've heard from mutual friends that she's finally started seeing a therapist. I'm glad to know she's getting help, but I've also made it clear that I need to maintain my distance. I've blocked her number and filtered her emails into a separate folder that I don't check. It might sound harsh, but it's what I need to do to protect my own mental health. I hope she finds her own path to healing, but I can't be a part of that journey. In the meantime, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life, one day at a time. I'm picking up new hobbies, going to the gym more regularly, and even considering taking a solo trip somewhere. It's not easy, and there are still moments where the pain hits me out of nowhere. But I'm learning to live with it, to accept it as part of my story, and to keep moving forward. Update 3. It's been another 2 months since my last update, and I'm finally starting to feel like myself again, or at least, like a new version of myself that's stronger and more resilient. I wanted to share how things have been going, especially for those who have followed my story and offered support along the way. First off, the divorce is officially finalized. It took a lot longer than I expected, with Bella contesting some of the terms and trying to draw out the process. But in the end, we reached an agreement, and the papers are signed. It's over. Seeing the final documents was bittersweet. On one hand, it was a relief to have that chapter of my life closed, but on the other, it was a stark reminder of everything I had lost. Still, I know this was the right decision, and I'm proud of myself for having the strength to see it through. After the divorce was finalized, I decided to take that solo trip I'd been thinking about. I booked a 2-week vacation to New Zealand, a place I've always wanted to visit but never had the chance. The trip was incredible, breathtaking landscapes, adventurous hikes, and some much-needed time away from everything. There was something about being in such a beautiful, remote part of the world that helped me gain perspective on everything I've been through. I returned home feeling more at peace and ready to start truly living again. Therapy has continued to be a huge part of my healing process. My therapist has been guiding me through some deep self-reflection, and I've learned a lot about myself, what I need, what I value, and what I want out of life. I'm no longer just focusing on what went wrong in my marriage, I'm starting to think about what I want in the future, both in terms of relationships and my personal goals. I've also made a conscious effort to expand my social circle. I've joined a few meetup groups, started attending a local book club, and even signed up for a cooking class, which has been both fun and delicious. It's been great to meet new people, to have conversations that don't revolve around the past, and to build a new community for myself. I've realized that I spent so much of my marriage focused on Bella that I neglected my own need for friendships and social connections. I'm not making that mistake again. As for Bella, I've heard through the grapevine that she's doing better. She's still seeing her therapist, and from what I understand, she's starting to take responsibility for her actions. I don't know if she's seeing anyone new, and honestly, I don't want to know. That part of her life is no longer any of my business. I've moved on, and I hope she has too, in whatever way works best for her. One unexpected development was reconnecting with an old friend, Claire. We were close in college but drifted apart after I got married. We recently bumped into each other at a mutual friend's party, and it was like no time had passed. We spent hours catching up, reminiscing about the old days, and just enjoying each other's company. Since then, we've been hanging out more, grabbing coffee, going to movies, and just having fun. I'm not saying this is going to turn into something romantic, it's too soon for me to think about that, but it's nice to have someone in my life who knows me so well and who I can just be myself around. For now, I'm happy with where things are, taking things slow, and focusing on enjoying life again. Looking back at where I was a few months ago, it's hard to believe how far I've come. The pain, the anger, the sadness, it's all still there, but it's not as overwhelming as it once was. I've learned to carry it with me without letting it weigh me down. I'm still healing, still growing, but I'm in a much better place than I ever thought I would be. But just as I was starting to move on with my life, Bella took a turn for the worse, or at least that's what she wanted me to believe. A few weeks after I had returned from New Zealand, I got a frantic call from Sarah, Bella's sister. She was crying, telling me that Bella had been spiraling, barely leaving the house, and not taking care of herself. Sarah said Bella had lost a significant amount of weight and was drinking heavily. Sarah begged me to come see her, to talk to her, and maybe help pull her out of this dark place. I felt a pang of guilt. I couldn't shake the image of Bella as the vibrant, loving woman I had married, and I didn't want to see her destroyed. But something in the back of my mind told me to be cautious. Bella had been manipulative before, could this be another attempt to pull me back in? Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet Bella, but I made it clear that this was not about getting back together, it was about making sure she was okay. When I arrived at her apartment, it was a mess. There were empty wine bottles everywhere, clothes strewn about, and Bella herself looked disheveled and hollow. She broke down as soon as she saw me, collapsing into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her, comforting her as best as I could, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of detachment. This wasn't the Bella I had known, but then again, I wondered if I had ever truly known her at all. She begged me to stay, to help her, to give her another chance. She said she had made the biggest mistake of her life and that she would do anything to fix it. As much as I wanted to believe her, I could see through the act. This wasn't genuine remorse, this was desperation. She was using her vulnerability to try and manipulate me, to guilt me into taking her back. I knew I couldn't fall for it. I told her that while I wanted her to get better, I couldn't be the one to help her. She needed to take responsibility for herself, to get professional help, and to rebuild her life on her own. When I said that, something changed in her. The tears dried up almost instantly, and her expression hardened. She accused me of abandoning her, of being the reason she was in this mess. She said that if I hadn't been so distant, she never would have cheated in the first place. The guilt trip was in full force, but I refused to let it affect me. I calmly told her that I had done everything I could to make our marriage work, and that she needed to stop blaming others for her choices. Realizing her emotional manipulation wasn't working, Bella turned to threats. She said she would take everything from me in the divorce, our house, the car, even my savings. She said she had a good lawyer and that she would make sure I was left with nothing. But I had anticipated this. I had spoken with my lawyer, and we had prepared for every possible scenario. I knew my rights, and I knew that her threats were empty. I stood up and told her that I wasn't afraid of her, that I had already moved on, and that nothing she said or did would change that. I told her I hoped she would get the help she needed, but that our relationship was over, and it had been for a long time. As I walked out of her apartment, I felt a sense of finality. I knew this was the last time I would ever let her into my life. After that confrontation, Bella went radio silent for a while. I focused on my own life, continued with therapy, and deepened my friendships. I even started dating casually, though I was in no rush to jump into anything serious. I was enjoying my newfound independence, my ability to live life on my own terms. But then, out of the blue, Bella showed up at my door one evening. I had just come home from the gym, sweaty and tired, when I heard the knock. I opened the door, and there she was, looking better than she had in months, but with a desperation in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. She begged me to take her back. She said she had made a huge mistake, that Mike had left her. Turns out, he was married too, and when his wife found out about the affair, he ended things with Bella immediately. She said she was alone, that she had no one else, and that she realized I was the only one who ever truly loved her. She was crying, pleading, saying she would do anything to make things right. But I had heard it all before. This time, I didn't let her inside. I told her through the barely open door that I had moved on, that I was happy with my life, and that there was no place for her in it anymore. I told her that she needed to accept the consequences of her actions and to stop trying to manipulate her way back into my life. She cried harder, but I stood firm. I told her I wished her the best, but that I was done. Then, without another word, I closed the door in her face. I stood there for a moment, hearing her sobs fade as she walked away, and then I turned back to my life, the life I had built for myself, without her.